Welcome to another episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill-Staxx, and today I got Scott Bernstein.
When you're talking about bosses or godfathers, I've been lucky enough to sit down with Cadillac Frank Salemi out of the Patriarchal crime family, Ralph Natali of the Bruno Scarfo crime family in Philadelphia, Tony Zerilli of the Detroit Toko Zerilli crime family.
Ralph's a character, huh?
Yeah, Ralph's a real Ralph, I got nothing negative to say about him in terms of my interactions with him.
Yeah.
I got along with him. We worked on a book proposal together. I eventually left the project after the project had been sold because we couldn't get on the same page on a number of things going forward, some of it being financial, some of it just being what was going to be written in the book that I didn't feel comfortable writing, that he wanted to feature prominently in the book, and I just wouldn't put my name to it because I had issues with the credibility of what was being said. But Ralph, as a person, I got along with incredibly well. He's very charming. He's very intelligent, and he's a great storyteller. Some people will tell you that the stories that he's relaying are either are false or full of falsehoods. But whether that's true or not, he tells a great story, and he definitely was two things you cannot dispute when you're talking about Ralph Natali. He was a boss. He was a recognized boss of a major crime family in a major city. He was recognized by New York as the Godfather of Philadelphia, and ran that city pretty much from the early 1990s, early to mid 1990s to the late 1990s. And he was a killer. He was not a fake tough guy. He was a legitimate murderer that had no issue carrying out murders with his own hands, and had no issue ordering murders. Admitted to 11
Nicky
hits.
Scarfo went to jail, and then he became the boss.
Scarfo went to jail, and then John Stampa took over for Scarfo, who was a Sicilian mob figure, and then Ralph Natali from prison joined forces with Skinny Joey Merlino, who's the current mob don of Philadelphia, and they decided to go to war with Stampa. They had a bloody 2-year power struggle, and Stampa ended up being sent to prison for racketeering and murder, and Merlino and Natali took over the city. Natali eventually flipped, and Merlino is like the Energizer Bunny, just still going, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight with him. He's the most compelling organized crime figure in America, without question. And I've always said, if Joey was living in New York, everybody in this country would know who he was. But since he lives in Philadelphia, it's a smaller group of or a smaller slice of fanfare. But he's a really, really, really big fish in that kind of.
A lot of people know who he is.
Yeah, in Philadelphia, he's a institution.
So now, what do you think of someone like him having an Instagram page?
Well, he had an Instagram for a handful of years, and then his attorneys convinced him to shut it down. So I don't think it was very bright to have an Instagram account if you're a mafia don. But he's still very public with who he's running around with, and he's very open to having pictures taken with him. His fans, if you will, quote unquote. I know back in the day he would snap photos with people that would come up and want to shake his hand, and then they would post it on their Instagram, and then he would like it and then like retweet it, or then he would repost it on his own.
That's crazy, man.
Very friendly and a man of the people. But yeah, probably wasn't the best idea to be having a social media account. That said, a lot of his soldiers have social media accounts. It's kind of like, you build the crime family in your own mold. So the Philadelphia crime family is kind of an in-your-face crime family, and they live their lives on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and they're the social media mob.
I don't think it's gonna last too long doing
Yeah,
that.
so I mean, there was a racketeering case that came down late last year that got one of his proteges as well as his underboss. Um, we'll see if there's more coming down the pike. Those are the rumors. But Joey lives his life with no regrets. He gives zero fucks.
Yeah.
And I think, can I swear on?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just Joey being Joey, and he's always going to be Joey, and that's why he's the intriguing and riveting character that he is, and that's why people are interested in him. He's a true cowboy, and he is the kind of the definition of the 21st century Don.
He's
Grew
been
up in the life.
involved with
Yeah,
quite a bit. Yeah.
grew up in the life, and his dad was the underboss of the Philly crime family in the '80s. And I think the thing that I take away from his behavior, and I try to express this when people want to talk to me about it. I think the best way to sum it up really is that this is a guy, him and his friends, um, dating back to when they were in high school, because they were the offspring of a lot of 70s and 80s era wise guys. They were the cool kids when they were in junior high school, when they were in high school.
Yeah.
They were the kids that had the cool parties and got to hang out with celebrities because of who their family was. And then when they became guys in their 20s and they were, hitting the bar scene along Delaware Avenue and other parts of Philadelphia, and then on the Jersey Shore and Margate, um, wherever they were was the place to be. Driving the best cars, wearing the best clothes, dating the hottest women. Because again, being cool meant something to them.
Yeah, but they were born into it, man.
Right,
The whole group of
most
them.
most mobsters and gangsters, well, maybe not gangsters, but most Italian mobsters, cool doesn't mean anything. I mean, Carlo Gambino was not cool.
No.
You know,
Back then, no. It wasn't like.
well, why did it matter? Who cares?
Yeah.
Cool. Joey Merlino and that Philadelphia group, cool has currency, and it has a
Yeah.
lot of currency. And I don't know if you could find, other than Don Gotti, other mob bosses that were obsessed with being cool or being trendy or being loved or being
Like, how
liked.
many likes do I
Power.
got?
Yeah. So that's just kind of, they've been like that their whole lives. And then when they became, when they started running the Philadelphia mob in their 30s in the 1990s, it heightened that, well, we're the cool kids and wherever we go is the place to be. Then they
Yeah.
all went to prison for a decade. They came out of prison in the 2010s. And what had transpired in those 10 to 12 years? Well, the internet, social media, it was
Yeah.
cool to have an Instagram account. It was cool to be on Twitter. So it shouldn't be shocking that all those guys came out of prison and, kind of taking Joey's lead, gravitated to social media. So, kind of wanting to chronicle their glamorous gangster lives.
Yeah, but people that are active in the life, man, I just don't think it's too
No, it's
bright.
not. It bucks conventional wisdom. But again, that's why the Merlino Crew is the Merlino Crew. That's why we're so obsessed and fascinated with them, because they don't live by the same rules that these other mob families and mobsters live by. And to their credit, it hasn't really slowed them down at all. Yeah, they all had to go do a 10. They missed their night. They missed their 40s. Like in the
Yeah.
20s, they were kind of up and comers. 30s, they were running the mob. 40s, they were all locked up, and now 50 in their 50s, they're all running the mob again and sharing all those power plays and elbow rubbing on social media. But they don't really, they're no worse for the wear. None of these guys are doing murder beat. None of the original Joey Merlino crew are doing a prison sentence for murder beefs.
Yeah.
They're all married. They're all getting to see their kids go off to college. They're out there living their best lives. So yeah, and I think if you ask them, again, they kind of take their lead from Joey. Their whole lives at this point they're living on house money. or they're
Yeah.
playing with house money. So
I heard a bunch of stories, man. I heard Joey gets money from people and doesn't pay him back.
I'm sure
I don't
that's not a secret.
I don't know how true it is.
That's not a secret.
Yeah.
Joey's whole life is a shakedown, and I'm sure with amongst him and his inner circle, he'd freely admit that. That's who Joey is again.
Yeah.
Joey's whole life is sticking his hand in people's pockets, and if you want to hang out with Joey, whether it be at a social level or a business level, it's pay to play.
Yeah.
I mean, there are literally hundreds of legitimate businessmen in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, South Florida area that will pay tens of thousands of dollars
To
to play
hang
a round
out
of
with
golf
him.
with Joey, to have a drink with Joey, to have a steak dinner with Joey.
Yeah.
And for him, he's like, why not?
What do you think about Sammy the Bull being on YouTube now?
I mean, I think he's, again, nothing but respect for his hustle and for what he's trying to do and build a brand. That's the smartest thing to do if you're someone in his position. And in terms of brand building in that space, outside of the fact that he was a cooperator, which I know for a lot of people it's kind of hard to say outside of the fact he was a cooperator, but outside of the fact that he was a cooperator at the time, was considered probably the biggest cooperator of all time. Um, there aren't many people in this space right now that have the credibility and the resume that Sammy the Bull has.
No. No.
In terms of bodies, in terms of criminal and business acumen, in terms of knowledge of the inner workings of organized crime in America at the highest levels. He saw it all and did it all, and he wants to share that and make a brand off it. Again, it's good for people like me that are trying to make the true crime genre, just have it keep building momentum because there's so much momentum behind it right now, and it's
Yeah.
a true golden age for storytelling in this space. So anytime there's guys like Sammy the Bull out there pushing the needle or kicking the can down the corridor for us, it's great for all of us. That all
Yeah.
said, I think he's kind of a microcosm or represents this boom in the last 2 years of cooperators and people that are former mobsters to have this platform on YouTube or in podcast form or what. And it's strange just to see it all coalesce in the last 2 years where it's like, sometimes those guys would do an interview here or there and you might see them on a 60 minutes kind of with their in a shadow blacked out. But
Yeah.
now there's like 10, 15 of these guys that have YouTube platforms. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I wonder what the Carlo Gambinos and the Lilo Galantes and the Chin Gigantes or
Anastasia.
from Detroit, or from Detroit, the Jack Tocos or Joe's Rillies, the Jackalonis would
They're
think about
rolling in their grave, man.
would think about that.
They're
But it
probably
is, I guess, it is where we are, and it is what it is. I would guess that if there was the equivalent of YouTube back in the 70s or 80s, and this was attempted, within a couple months, someone would get a bullet in the back of the head, and anyone
and
that was
that
thinking about following in
people
that guy's
yeah,
footsteps
people would fall in line.
would stop. But
Yeah.
again, that's not where we are. The mob isn't murdering people the way they used to, and that's just not in the Midwest, in Detroit, Chicago. That's in areas that or Chicago always had a very high hit ratio. But places like Philadelphia and New York, and New England that were all very trigger happy or quick
Yeah.
triggered, if you will, with mob hits. The volume has decreased significantly in the last 20 years, and
Chicago's a lot of gang violence out there. It's a lot
oh
of
yeah, the street gang violence in Chicago has never been worse. But I'm
yeah, it's
talking about
insane.
the Italian organized crime.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. I think it died down a lot, and people are maybe they're just not into
But even in
killing
Philadelphia,
people.
there hasn't been a mob hit in 10
Yeah,
years.
it's been a long time.
Yeah, there was a bunch or there was a handful in the 2000s, but
Yeah,
the 2010s, there's only been one.
yeah. Al Bruno, right? Up near my
No,
way.
well, El Bruno was a hit from Western Massachusetts in
Yeah,
Springfield. That's a crew that's connected to the Genovese crime family out of New York.
yeah.
The Philadelphia, and that was in 2003. The
Oh,
Philadelphia hit
2003.
yeah, the Philadelphia hit I'm referencing came in 2012, and it was in Philadelphia. A guy by the name of Gino DiPietro, who was a convicted mob associate, drug dealer, and Anthony Nicodemo, who was Joey Merlino's driver and bodyguard in the 90s. Nicodemo was convicted of DiPietro's murder, being the getaway driver. They've not been able to indict or try the alleged shooter, but prosecutors say that the shooter was Baby Dom Grande, who is Joey's
Consigliere, right?
protege at this point, and is being groomed, if you believe insiders, as he's younger than me. He's about 41, I think. Dom is being groomed if you believe what's being said within the Philadelphia underworld and the scuttlebutt, Dom is being groomed to eventually take over the crime family,
Be the
and
boss. That's crazy.
he's facing a drug case right now, a drug racketeering case right now. He's under indictment for. But the prosecutors in Philadelphia, in the DiPietro case, believe that he was the trigger man in that homicide. Never been charged, but the allegation made its way into the court transcript in Nicodemo's trial, where prosecutors, I believe, either in their opening arguments or their closing arguments, um, referenced Nicodemo's associate Dom Grande as being the trigger man.
It's crazy, man. It gets deep.
Yeah, and that was 2012. Nicodemo, took the bullet and is doing like a 30 to 50
That's
year
insane.
stint. Um,
That's a stand-up guy right there.
yeah, everyone was speculating that he was gonna crumble and because he was at the time, I think he was 40, in his early 40s, and had a beautiful wife and a newborn kid, and everyone thought that he wouldn't be able to handle it. He had never really done any prison time before, but he stood up.
That's
It's been
crazy.
about 10 years. He was arrested the day of the murder because they found the murder weapon in his car after someone caught the murder happening, and it wrote down Nick Nemo's uh, his
License
license,
plate.
his
Yeah,
car, or
and
sorry, not his license, his tags,
the alleged shooter got
his license
away.
his license plate. So I don't know why he was using his own car on a hit that was like 10 minutes from, or less than 10 minutes from his house, like 5 minutes from his house.
That's
So
crazy.
someone took down his license plate, and cops went to his house, and the gun was hot in the back seat of the car.
Probably
So
just dropped off the shooter.
yeah. So
Wow.
other than that, it's been pretty quiet in terms of violence in Philadelphia the last 10 years.
What about the
But
one in New York? The sons, they had their fathers shot or something.
yeah, that was
Um,
I think it was
right?
one. Was it two? I know one. I know one son was being accused of it. I don't know if the second son was.
Yeah, the other son was arrested too.
Sally Daz
Yeah,
Zatola was a uh, associate of the Lucchese crime family and the Bonanno crime family.
yeah,
He was back in the early 2000s. He was very close to Vinny Gorgeous, Vinny Basciano, who was a capo, and then eventually, for a short period of time, was boss of the Bonannos.
yeah.
Uh, Zatola, yeah. At first, it looked like either Albanians were hunting him, or members of the Lucchese crime family wanted him dead. And then it eventually came out that it was his own kid that had been hiring these gangbangers to take him out. They eventually got him in a
McDonald's drive-through.
McDonald's drive-through getting coffee.
Yeah, crazy, man. I saw the video where they're running after him.
And then that was like the fifth attempt. They had been trying to kill him for like a couple of years.
It's insane. Your own kids.
Yeah, yeah.
You never know.
You know?
One thing I don't understand about these mob murders, I understand that sometimes they got to make an example and leave a body on the street, but why wouldn't they just commit the murder to where they get rid of the body and then they don't ever get in trouble for it? Why would they like make themselves get in trouble? I just don't get it.
Well, again, I think that's one of the reasons that there's been a downtick in mob murders across the board, you know, in every city the last 20 years, because the bosses realize when they do a cost benefit analysis, especially in the era of post 9/11, where there's so many resources being put towards terrorism and homeland security.
Yeah.
You know, the smart guys, the Barney Belomos of the world, the Solly De Laurentises of the world, the Joey Merlinos of the world, the Matty Guglielmides of the world, or Carmen D'Annunzios of the world. They've crunched the numbers, and they realize that if we just kind of keep to gambling, loan sharking, extortion, the kind of stuff that you're not putting bodies in the morgue, you're not scaring wives and kids that they'd be walking down the street and there'd be a drive-by, that the feds are pretty much going to leave you alone. And if they come after you, they're going to come after you kind of with some, you know, with Joey, they've come after him and they brought the kind of a weak racketeering case. They eventually got him to a gambling charge, and they got him for a couple parole violations. But, you know, I'm pretty confident that if Joey would, and it's still kind of up in the air what role Joey played in the 2012 DiPietro hit, because Joey has retired, quote unquote, down in Boca Raton, and isn't running the family on a day-to-day basis. So no one knows for sure if Nicodemo and whoever did the DiPietro hit with Nicodemo had sign off from Joey. I suspect they would have, but regardless, it's not known for sure. But I could tell you, if Joey would have come out of prison in 2011 and came back to Philadelphia and started killing people and littering the street with bodies like he had been doing in the 90s, I have no doubt that he would be behind bars right now, and they would have cracked one of those murders and locked him up. Right now, all he has to worry about is the past half dozen or so murders that they want to time to, those investigations don't come to fruition. But right now, I don't think even the DiPietro case, it'd be very difficult to link him to, because he was in Florida at the time. I think the only stuff he needs to worry about now are some of the hits from the late 90s, and then some of the hits from the early 2000s while he was in prison. There's some people that believe that he could have had a role in some of them. One of the guys that got killed, Johnny Gongs, Casasanto, was having an affair with Joey's wife while Joey was in prison, and wasn't being very shy about it. In fact, he was bragging about it. Johnny Gongs and Joey had been kind of long time rivals in romance as well as rivals on the street. And Johnny Gongs was out with Debbie Merlino in the months and years after Joey got locked up, and was going to places where Joey's crew would hang out.
That's crazy.
So Johnny Gongs ended up dead in 2003, I think. I got to double check. Two or three, and Anthony Nicodemo, although he's never been charged in that hit, again, Joey's guy, is one of the suspects in the Johnny Gongs hit. And there's some people that believe that Joey called that hit in from behind bars. But other than that particular hit, there are some things in the 90s that I think he might still have to worry about for the late 90s. But he was charged with about a half a dozen murders that had taken place in the early to mid 90s that he beat at trial in 01. So, he's
It's pretty crazy,
quite
man.
a lucky individual. And again, that's what makes Joey. And he tells people that he's got the devil on his shoulder. And I think that's a great way to describe him. He's like being protected by the Lord of Darkness.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to thank you for coming on my show. I'm gonna have you on again. And where can people get your book? I'll put
you
a
can get my
link in
books anywhere books are sold. You can listen to my podcast, the Original Gangsters podcast, anywhere where you download podcasts. Apple, Audible, Spotify, what have you. You can read my writing every day at www.gangsterreport.com, where I focus a lot on those 4 crime families we've been talking about: Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, and New England. And then, you can follow me on Twitter, Bernie's Tweets, BurneysTweets. You can follow Gangster Report on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And, get at me. I'm always willing. I'm not willing. I'm always eager to engage with my audience and throw any questions or comments or opinions my way, and I'll give you my 2 cents.
Definitely, man. I'll put a link in the description below for all your things. And
I love what you're doing, man. You're doing a great job. I love. I thought you would actually be coming through Detroit, and we'd be like going out to eat and drink and
I want
about it.
Eventually, I will, man. Eventually, I will when I get up enough money to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
I saw what you did with Paulie and Bobby in Boston. Shout out to Bobby and Paulie out there. Bobby's been real good to me. I got a lot of love for Boston Bob. And you want to talk about a guy that's lived a crazy life, man. Bobby Luisi, R.I.P. to his dad and brother and cousins. He had his whole family got killed in a massacre. In
99 restaurant.
Fall 95.
Yeah, I think it was around 95.
I can't imagine. Not you don't just lose one person in a gangland hit; you lose 5.
Yeah.
But he went to prison, did his time. I know at one point he was cooperating, but he pulled that back and he wanted to be able to live with himself.
He was gonna about the painting or something like that.
But now he's out here just on his grind. He did his time, and he's found God. He preaches the gospel, and I know that he wants to do good. He wants to go back to his neighborhood in the North End and other parts of Boston and try to get the younger generation kind of steer him away from the streets, because he can speak more personally than most on the fact that streets don't love you back, man. You can love them as much as you can love the streets. As you could be the romance of the century, it could be Romeo and Juliet for you, but they ain't gonna love you back. In fact, they're gonna take way more from you than they give you. And I think every mob guy or gangster realizes that as the years go on.
Yeah. Bobby's a great guy, man. Shout out to Bobby and Paulie.
Shout out to Bobby.
And thanks, man. And I'm gonna definitely have you on again, man. I could chop it up with you about this mob stuff all day long. And
thanks, man, and good luck. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
Thank you, man. Make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Until next time.